Good morning. My name is Ju Nam, Executive Director of AMCHAM Korea. Thank you for joining today's Human Resources Committee webinar. We are discussing a very important topic today. The COVID-19 pandemic has brought the topic of mental health and well-being to the global stage. As the situation continues to evolve, many of us are searching for the best ways to encourage and maintain both physical and mental health of our employees. Today, we are joined by an expert who will share his keen insight on this very topic, Mr. Paul Jambunathan, Senior Advisor at PERSOLKELLY APAC and Consultant Clinical Psychologist at Paul J. Psychology Consultancy. With over 35 years of experience in applied psychology in the UK, Australia, and Malaysia, Paul has extensively dealt with a wide spectrum of emotional and behavioral problems. In today's presentation, Paul will draw upon his extensive experience as a lecturer, running a clinic, and putting on numerous workshops around the world to provide useful insights and suggestions on how to promote mental hygiene in the workplace. We hope this presentation will be especially beneficial for people who are managers or serving in an HR function. This session will also be moderated by Mr. Matthew Jones, co-chair of the AMCHAM Human Resources Committee and a senior foreign attorney at Chang. Should you have any questions during the webinar, please be sure to address them only in the Q&A function after the presentation and not on the chat function. Without further ado, I'd like to hand the mic over to Matthew. Thank you.
Thank you, Juch, and hello, everyone. It's great to be with you again. I'm very excited to have our guest today, Paul. Before we have Paul on, I just wanted to set some context. Before the pandemic, I would say the number one HR issue that we would see, at least from a law firm perspective, was workplace harassment. We all know that the workplace harassment law was passed in 2019 in response to the increasing number of workplace abuse cases that were showing up in the news and social media. And so this is obviously an issue that is pervasive, not only in Korean society, but throughout the world. So we thought it would be really interesting to have Paul Jambunathan come on to our HR committee today to discuss applied mental hygiene in the workplace, as this is something that I think can help companies reduce this incidences of workplace harassment, because it kind of gets at the core of people's mental health. So without further ado, I'd like to have Paul come on. And there he is.
Good morning, Matt.
Good morning. And so, Paul, as we discussed, I think we can try to keep this as interactive as possible. I know you have some slides, so we'd be happy to listen to that. We invite our audience to jump in with questions in the Q&A, and I will also try to jump in with some questions in order to keep this as interactive as possible.
Thank you, Matt. Brilliant. I'll proceed to share my screen now, shall I?
Yes.
Here goes. Oh, by the way, I should say Selamat Pagi to all of you. Selamat Pagi is safe morning, which is the good Malaysian greeting in the morning. So Selamat Pagi. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. The topic is applied mental hygiene. It's a term that exists, but not many people are aware of it, and not even many medical schools are aware of this factor. It'll make a lot of sense to you once I start presenting it to you, and you'll realize the importance of it. We're going to try and focus about mental hygiene at the workplace. This is me. I'm an avid scuba diver, and I always have that as my introductory slide. And I believe Matt's a diver too. Brilliant. Thank you. Now, under my name, I put on a lot of titles there, and I'm not a medical doctor, and Dato is a title given by the state here. I'm not a professor either, but Thun is a very revered term given to exceptional leadership, and there are only very few Thuns in the country. I like to joke saying that I am a Thun only if you spell it backwards, Matt. So there you go.
There you go.
Absolutely. Certified clinical psychologist, otherwise known as clinically certified psycho. But please, that's just between us. Now, please call me Paul Jambu or Paul J. This is the psychological mumbo jumbo about who I am. Moving on. Matt, thank you for confirming the fact that it is a reality and a well-known reality that suicide and mental health is a big issue in Korea. I've just put on these slides as a reminder. One of the points I'd like to highlight here is that the third last point from the bottom, sadly, the stats show that only 1 in 10 people go and seek some kind of help. That's a sad situation for me. And bullet point number 2 reflects that issue, and the issue is more an attitudinal issue. It's not for want of a reality check that this is the real problem in the country, but that the attitude is they don't go looking for it. Look at the numbers who are unhappy, Matt. 54% unhappy, women feeling stressed as many as well. Moving on to the next slide. This is an interesting article out last week. Very interesting article that talks about how these factors have doubled over the last period, given the pandemic. The pandemic to me is more of a pressure cooker. There are a lot of latent issues already in society or in many families or in individuals. What's happened here is that because the pandemic, this pressure cooker has been imposed on all of us, and it has kind of lit the fuse to a lot of latent issues. Of course, the pandemic has brought about its own situations and the call for how human beings respond to that. These slides are for you are going to be circulated, I believe, so please avail of the information therein. This is another interesting article from 1 year ago, September 2020, and there are a lot of people just worried about the jobs and issues. Now, I'm just setting the scene for what I'm about to present in terms of how human beings function and how we as lay people can actually go about beginning to understand the processes. Just excerpts from there as well. Please remind yourselves about the reality of this happening. Oh, just to go back one slide, look at the second paragraph. The Autopsy Center has identified issues like depression, addiction, anxiety, sleep disorders, and others. Now, I highlight this because these are all preventable issues. They're all preventable. They can be tackled early on by the individual themselves or within the primary environment. Now, all of us live within primary environments. We live with our families or our loved ones or in silo even. But we all have a primary environment. And I'd like to introduce that concept to you now. But our primary environment is then exported or imported rather to various other environments, our work environment, our recreational environment, our relationships environment. But please remember this, there's an overlap of all our environments at certain stages of our lives, not just the lifespan, but at certain hours of the day even. Whether it's via telecommunications or social media, there is this overlap. So bear that in mind, guys. And sometimes it calls for switching of hats multiple times during the day. Now, please remember that all these problems that precipitate in issues like suicide, which is an issue that's related to helplessness and hopelessness, the inability to control your own destiny and outcome. They get so helpless and hopeless, they take their own lives. And preventable issues are driving this, according to this center. Reality at a price. Yes, Korea has always been a fantastic driving force in the world for many, many good reasons. And being a sportsman, I've often come across, I've had to meet people in the field in sports, and I realized that it's a whole different level of discipline and performance. But it comes at a price. People are under a lot of pressure, and that's coming through regularly via the stats. This is another article that came out a couple of months ago. I'm sure you're aware of this. It was in the Korean Herald. And I'd like to end up with this article as well. And I'll come back to that in a little bit. Stats again is for you to have a good read through. This is my model for you all to take away today. Now, this is how the individual functions. It gives you a basic insight as to how you can appreciate the person next to you. Better still, and more importantly, how you should start processing your own self, your own responsiveness to situations, and your own responsiveness to yourself. Okay. It is widely understood and appreciated that we respond to all kinds of stimuli. Now, let's start with that factor. Oh, by the way, all these arrows indicate that every factor I'm about to put up is interacting with all other factors. They are bi-directional arrows, constantly interacting with one another. Now, these are 5 factors for you to take home. They are a bit reductionistic at this level, but it's something good for all of you. Take it home, share it with your kids, share it with your family, and it's the starting block for something really good for all of you. We have stimuli either in the external environment or internally. What I mean by internally is your memories, the loss of a loved one, the memory of tough times, the memory of traffic jams, the memory of the boss insulting you, the memory of someone harassing you. And those are internal stimuli. But let's assume there's a lot of external stimulus as well. And could be traffic jams, anything externally. Now, what happens in a normal human being is that we process this information that we get. So our minds are involved in this, and this is called cognitive processes. Perhaps the biggest issue here is how we perceive things, okay? Now, please don't believe the fact that because you perceive something as black, that you're wrong, that it's white and it's not black. No, no, no. Perceptions are developed as a result of me giving you impressions. Impressions are given, perceptions are formed. So it's a two-way street again. So if someone perceives you as a bully or someone perceives you as kind, it's because of the kind of impression that you have given. So whenever there's an issue about perceptions, please remember that's always a two-way street along the way. Another important factor to bear in mind is your value system. Culturally, our value systems change a lot internationally, and even within the country and within states, even within towns. However, given globalization, there are a lot of values that are beginning to overlap. And when you have overlap, just like the earthquake and the tectonic plates, you will have conflict. And values in conflict is a big issue that comes up in the workplace, both at the individual level and at group levels. So therefore, the corporation level. Now, Matt calls me an idiot. Paul, you're silly, being stupid. You're an idiot, Paul. Why did Matt call me that? So my yellow box is in function now. And immediately I go to my red box and I react in some way. Matt, you're a bigger silly fellow. Matt, I'm going to sabotage Matt. I'm going to scratch your car. I'm going to do all kinds. I'm going to backbite you and spread rumors, Matt. Or I'm going to commit suicide. That's a behavioral reaction as well. So this is a simplistic issue. I want to introduce you to 2 other factors that are crucial factors that we normally don't think about. One is none of this will happen if you are dead. So we need a body that's functioning. Now, your physiology is crucial here, and your physiology throughout the lifespan is crucial too, because our hormones change, our functionality changes, it all changes. Now, if you've got alcohol in the system, your physiology is going to be different. It'll impact your cognition, it'll impact your behavior, it'll even impact your perception of whatever stimulus you're exposed to. Now, that's an important bit. If you're high on weed, that's going to affect you too. If you're sleep deprived, that's going to affect you too. If you've got too much blood in the system, that's going to affect you too. If you're high on adrenaline and you're all pumped up, that's going to affect your decision-making processes as well. Now, please remember the importance of your living body and how crucial that is to human function. I'm not asking you to go and become a bodybuilder or a triathlete of sorts, but become aware that your physiology is crucial. Remember, we mentioned sleep deprivation earlier on, right? Sleep is a crucial factor that plays a tremendous role in the daily function of a human being in many, many respects. Now, what do you think is the last box? The last box is perhaps what drives all of us. It's something that's very silent, it's invisible, but something we can all become intelligent about. And this is called your emotional reactions. Now, for those of you who believe in EQ, please, my advice is, please, 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 junk it, guys. Junk EQ. You can never put a quotient on anybody's emotion. And if you decide on putting a quotient, it's age-related, by the way. And if you add a quotient, that means we get more and more stupid as we get older. It's not true. Okay, it's not true. We get wiser as we get older. Now, emotional intelligence, EI, is what you should be following. Please look up Peter Salovey's work from Yale University. He started the whole concept of EI. Daniel, what's his name, took it up and wrote it up as EQ, made bucks. He's now gone back to EI, by the way. Please try and start reading up as much as you can on emotions. Now, if I were to to run a workshop for people, I would start with recognizing emotions, developing self-awareness first, developing emotional intelligence in people, and then start working out other psychological aspects linked to that. This is what drives you. Emotion in Latin actually means that which makes you move, your basic driving factor. And the more aware you are of that, you'll see the multiple effects it has on everything else. So let's get back to Matt insulting me. Paul, you're a dumb, silly fellow. Right, okay, let me think about this. Let me think about this, and let me now choose I'm in a good place today. No, Matt doesn't matter to me, and I'm beginning to rationalize issues. And my emotions are dictating how I feel. And so my behavior is, yeah, Matt, you can have your say. It doesn't matter to me at all. Can you see how this pans out? But if I'm already on the boil and I'm angry and Matt comes and adds fuel to that fire, I'm going to react in a far more vehement manner, and something unpleasant might transpire. Now,
So Paul?
Yes?
This is a very interesting concept of emotional intelligence.
Right.
You mentioned awareness. That sounds like the first stage in emotional intelligence.
Absolutely. Well, I'll go a bit further. There's a stage before emotional awareness, and that is developing your emotional vocabulary, Matt.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you can give an example?
Now, let's take the word sad. I'm feeling sad. Now, how many, there's so many levels of feeling sad. I'm down, I'm depressed, I'm angry but sad. So now in Korean language itself, how many words are there for frustration?
There's actually a lot of words in Korean, but maybe less so in English.
Yes, so no, English is don't forget, English, the language is made up of only 26 letters. It's a crazy thing, okay? It's a very limiting language.
Right.
And that's why we need to be so verbose to sometimes express what my sadness means. So it doesn't mean you're less emotionally intelligent if you speak English. No, the whole idea is to become more aware of how you feel and how you can express that. Now, if you cannot express that verbally, what happens in a society, for instance, that represses verbal expression, people might become more outward in their physical expression. On the other hand, people who cannot even express themselves and their emotions outwardly or verbally become inwardly expressive, and you get anger in, you get depression in, you get emotions in, and like a cancer that begins to grow very, very aggressively.
So this is very interesting. Maybe you'll discuss it later, but I'd be interested to understand how emotional intelligence can be developed in a person.
I will. We'll definitely come back to that, Matt, 100%. Yeah. Okay. And Matt, by the way, you're a nice guy, very pleasant, very intelligent chap. I don't insult you. I'm just putting these 5 factors into play. Now, can you see how you feel, Matt?
Yes.
You're a great guy. I've just given you a green, you've got a yellow working, your blue is in a good situation this morning, good emotions, and you said, yes, thanks, Paul. How nice that is. Now, if only we have these processes aware all the time at work, all these processes working wherever you are in any circle, they can be of immense benefit if you become aware. Now, the trick behind all of this, I'll come to the trick later on. Now, these 4 are certainly yours. They are particularly yours and uniquely yours, not mine, not mine. We react to the same word. You're sexy today. You're good looking today. You haven't performed up to par. I'm disappointed in you. These are all green factors that are thrown your way. But how you choose to react and how your body reacts and what actions you want to take are all yours, not mine. They're not mine. I cannot make you, I can't put you in a red place. No, they're not. So please remember, this is something that we can all take ownership over. This is my reactions, my emotions, my body, my way of thinking. And there's a lot you can do. Please type in cognitive distortions in your computer. You'll see 12 to 15 cognitive distortions that we engage in without even realizing that we're constantly engaging in cognitions of sorts. And many of them are often distorted, and that kind of relays us and takes us off on a tangent terribly. So please remember, this orange container contains you as a person. But if you want to be more inclusive, there's a lot of green and memories and experiences that determine how you react as well. Coming back to the model, let me show you how quickly this model works. Okay, bang! Can you see that? In micro milliseconds, this is how our behavior is linked with our hormonal system, the neurology, the physiology, everything. This is how it works in milliseconds. And we don't realize what's happening. So how then do we start becoming more aware? And how then do we start helping others become more self-aware as well? Well, you slow down these arrows. You slow down these arrows. You slow down your processes, take time, learn to slow down your physiology, relaxation, meditation, mindfulness behavior, becoming more aware of your emotions, having a repertoire of behavior you can choose from and not just falling into this automatic trap that many of us often engage in, and learning how to think differently. Learning how to think, thinking about thinking is a crucial thing. We're not taught that in school, guys. We're taught how to excel in maths, physics, bio, chemistry, and all that kind of stuff. Things that drive us to the loony bin faster than you can imagine. But thinking about your emotions, these are crucial, fundamental, primary skills, human skills that are missing. I call it the absent curriculum. So moving on, bang, don't forget this, okay? If your emotions are negative, see how they interact with other people, other departments of your body. Can you see that happening? That's what happens, guys. And it produces very negative outcomes. Okay, now that is one message I want you to take back today. Moving on. This is you and me, probably, well, many of you, not me, I'm over the hill basically, but this is about where you are in your lifespan, adults moving on, healthy, hopefully. Don't forget that you had a past. You are, whoever you are today, you are a collection of your memories and your experiences. Think of it that way. And don't forget, you're headed in a direction too. We're all going to die, and our systems are growing. We are growing. Our minds are expanding. Our minds are shrinking. Our brains are shrinking, sorry. We're a collection of a lot of memories and experiences. So whoever you deal with today, I'm dealing with Matt, I'm chatting with all of you. You represent a massive collection of experiences and memories. And I'm engaging with that. Now, don't forget, I'm engaging with my 5 factors, okay? My orange, blue, yellow boxes and all of that. And now I'm engaging with you, Matt. These boxes are interacting. Can you imagine the permutations and combinations? And if my behavior is negatively dominating today, and your behavior is dominating, we're going to have a massive conflict, man. We're going to crash today, big time. If my emotions are not in a good place, or if my body is not in a good place, we are in trouble already. Now, to become aware of that is a crucial process. Now, no doubt we're all going through the lifespan, which is an important thing. We've got to remember that our bodies are also changing. All our bodies are changing. We're getting older. Our bodies are changing. The hormones are changing. We go through menopause. We go through erectile dysfunction. We go through brain shrinking. We forget things. Our bodies are changing, and you see how they can affect our performance and how we feel, act, and think. It affects our fat, very easily put, how you feel, act, and think. Now, throughout the lifespan, don't forget, as a child, you got 5 factors. As you grow, you got the 5 factors. Throughout your lifespan, you have all these 5 factors working in you, and they change in the intensity and everything that happens. So please remember, this is happening to your child. When you get home, don't think the child doesn't have these 5 factors. They have it. And you are probably part of that green issue. You're probably the stimulus in some manner or form. Your wife is a stimulus, your partner, your dog, your cat. Oh man, there's so many things that happen. It's going to drive you crazy if you let it, but you'll become a very sensitized person. And that brings out the humanity in you finally, hopefully. Please remember that we all have value systems that also change over time. Now, this is just downloaded from the internet. If you go through this list, just in a carefree manner, and choose your own top 5 and ask your partner to choose top 5, or ask your office mates to choose their top 5, you'll find that they all vary. Why do they vary? People's values vary. They vary. People change at different times. Values can change, guys. Even core values can change depending on your life experience. So values are crashing too, and these values drive your emotions. These values drive your actions. They drive your perceptions too. So people are people with different values. So let's examine this term hygiene. We're also sensitized to that now, right? We're kind of cleaning our hands and preventing illnesses, okay? The science that deals with the promotion and preservation of health. Yes, we see all these posters up, wash your hands, have a bath, etc., etc. The condition or practice conducive to the preservation of health. I'm sure every corporation and every company involved today have got positive hygiene issues in the company. Preserving health, you've got sanitizers all over the place, you've got enough soap, you know, your doors are automatic, etc., etc. You don't have great stuff. So you understand the word hygiene. Do you know the word prophylaxis, or some might call it prophylaxis? Prophylaxis or prophylactic behavior is behavior that promotes, that prevents illnesses and diseases. So you sleep well, you take vitamins, you exercise, you look left and right before you cross the street. These things prevent accidents, prevent diseases. Now, there's an interesting word that I want to teach you. Vaccinations, that's another prophylactic thing. They prevent issues. In mental hygiene, there's a new word, not a new word, it's an unknown word called psychophylaxis. Now, what do you think this means? It means the same thing, but specifically, it means development of healthy emotional attitudes and behavior, prevention of emotional problems, promoting and enhancing a healthy state of mind. Is this in your charter at your workplace? Is this in your charter at home? What is your home mission statement? Is this part of your mission statement that I'm going to practice the development of emotional habits? I'm going to practice prevention of mental illnesses. This has got to be central to all of us. This is the call I want you to take home. Listen to this. It's a very loud call, and Korea is shouting it out for ages now. It's becoming a big reality. Mosby's dictionary defines mental hygiene as, of course, the study concerned with the development, guys. You're not born with it. You develop it. You're taught it. It means you can learn it. Healthy mental and emotional habits, attitudes, and behavior to prevent mental illness. Now, if you extrapolate these dots that you see from all the stats about Korean mental health, where is it going, guys? Where is this going? It's on the up and up. And what, are we going to wait for a tsunami? Are we going to wait for another pandemic to show that, oh, it's gone, skyrocketing now? There's a lot we can do to prevent issues or empower people to be well equipped with the right tools. And of course, now I'm knocking on the door of my pet topic called resilience. Now, how resilient are you? What kind of resilience are you creating or brewing in people under your care, under your control, or under your employ? So this is an important issue, and this is what mental hygiene is all about. It's about prevention much more than curative issues. So my call to companies is, please engage in more prevention programs, emotionally empowering programs, mental health driven programs, rather than saying, oh, we have an EAP and you can avail of the EAP services. Please go and get yourselves looked at by a psychiatrist. No, we want to do away with psychiatrists. We want to do away with psychologists like me. Because if you are empowered enough, you don't need people. If you brush your teeth well enough, guys, you don't need a dentist. The problem is we don't. Put dentists, psychologists all out of business. You do need them for extreme cases, no doubt. Moving on. How leaders can help. Now, this is taken from that article written by in the Herald. As time evolves, there are greater expectations from employees. Now, this is a cut and paste from the article, and I find it a very useful bit. Employees want to feel more safe and appreciated. Well-being needs to be at the core of all your mission statements, how you function within the system. There needs to be due diligence to this aspect of issues. We need companies and company leaders to give voice to this call, voice to the empathy of workers under them and people. Much more, a different quality of communication, one-to-one communication and relationships. A change of attitudes towards mental health. And as the literature shows us, we're only talking about Korea today. As the literature shows us, there's an attitudinal issue of towards mental health in Korea. Your budget for mental health is very, very low, but there is a budget. And the expenditure of that budget is still not enough. You know, it's a sad issue. We need to promote better work-life balance and reduce burnout. Do you know the Japanese term called ikigai, Matthew?
No.
Ikigai is when you wake up in the morning and say, yes, I've got energy in the world. There's something to look forward to. I got ikigai, you know, I'm still breathing kind of stuff. But the opposite of ikigai is something called karoshi, which is burnout. And you're burning out at both ends. And I think that's what's happening to a lot of people who are high performing, companies that drive karoshi without realizing it. I will come to prophylactic assessments, which is the baseline issue, you know, how we need, what we can do, what steps we can take to measure how people are doing over time and use that as indicators as to you're doing good, you're doing bad, you better check yourself, you better, you know, things of that nature.
So Paul, if I can just interrupt, one thing I'm kind of getting from this slide is, of course, there are things that companies could do,
Yep.
You know, that may be driven by, you know, the HR department.
Yes.
But then I think in terms of showing empathy and support for employees, that's something that all, you know, managers need to learn how to do in terms of how they communicate, how they interact, have more of a broader mind of not just checking their subordinate employees' performance, but trying to be trained in how to, you know, see how they're doing from a holistic point of view. Yeah. And I think that requires kind of a broader mindset for a lot of managers.
Mindset change. Yes, definitely. Yeah. But Matthew, you could be one of those managers who's so sensitized and sensible enough to say, I want to change. And these are the skills I have now, and I'm going to make a difference to people I'm working with. However, if you're the victim of an upper system that doesn't care for you, it's going to burn out. So it's got to be a systemic change in all axis forms, you know. But you're right. I mean, and the caregiver will burn out. I mean, the sensible person, the sensitive person will burn out if they're not looked after as well. So it's got to be a whole system. And from this article, I've learned this issue about the chaebol culture and how that can itself cause insensitivity. I tripped at my tongue there. But it happens in families, you know, because you're a close family. You're not as sensitive as you should be to your family needs. You're more sensitive to the needs of people outside the family. And that's what this kind of culture propagates. So, you know, you've got to wake up about being sensitive to people around you. Check out these 5 factors as often as you can. This comes in terms, I only got one question via the form, one test question, and then another question about somebody asked a question about particular psychometric testing. I've paraphrased that question and thrown it in this form. What kind of tests can be used for employees? Now, clinical psychologists are experts at testing. So we do all kinds of testing. Never over test, because, you know, if you're going for too many x-rays and too many scans, you're going to find something there, but you're functional without the scans. So sometimes you just don't over test. However, an early detection, which creates a baseline of your anxiety, your depressive scale, your stress factors, and these contribute to your burnout. Now, burnout has its own scales as well. These are very good things to do early on. You don't need to have a mental health problem. You don't need to have a problem per se, but these are good things for you to get yourself assessed in, so that you know where you are at the moment. And you can always know whether you're getting worse or getting better. If you're getting better, carry on with what you're doing. If you're getting worse, hey, that's a sign for change. Change is imminent and due. And these will also determine the kind of intervention that's necessary. Now, this is the answer to this. Now, many companies may not be aware of this particular tool. It's called the Occupational Stress Inventory. It's a very, very good tool. I use it frequently, and it even stands up in court. When I produce reports, it goes up to court and for mediation and, you know, the industrial court and things. It's called the Occupational Stress Inventory, OSI Revised Edition. Now, this is the kind of areas it measures. Okay, it looks at your occupational roles, role overload, role insufficiency, things about that within the cooperative, within your company level. It looks at the personal strain you have, and it also looks at your personal resources. So as a person, what do I need to be empowered to actually deal with the challenges I'm facing regularly? Now, can you see how these kind of tests can be very applied and useful? Now, this is just
stop you there, Paul. So that's very interesting. Is this an organization that anyone in the world can have access to? And
no, you need to be qualified to purchase the license to use it. It's available, and or be trained. So if HR buys it, HR will need someone qualified in the department. As you go through the purchase form, you'll see the different levels of qualification. You may not even need someone within the company to buy it. You might have an external psychologist, for instance, like me, who has the tool and then applies it for you.
Okay.
So it's readily available. And you've got a very strong psychology society in Korea. I think the president I just remember him as President Cho, but I don't know him personally. But your psychology association will already have data on this. It's a very big association in Korea. Yeah, moving on. This is just a reminder about what I mentioned earlier in terms of overlap. We have the individual, we have the primary environment, could be a family, not a family, a group of friends. We have a secondary environment, and we have many, many other environments. So this is you. This is somebody in your office. These are the living entities, guys, don't forget. They're all over the office, all over your neighborhood, but you're overlapping. You're overlapping. You're overlapping. Do you know how many people you overlap with in a day? Your minds are interacting, your cognitions are interacting, your emotions are interacting, your behavior is impinging on other people as well, what you do and what you don't do either. They're always all interacting. They're causing so many ripples, positive, negative, and how it impacts them is purely subjective, but it's a reality to them. Don't forget the phrase, perceptions are real. What I perceive is real to me. That's going to determine everything. To quote Eugene and Hannah, to combat these kinds of toxic cultures, leaders will need to tap into their own courage, resilience. Leaders, you need to have the courage to bring about change. There's so much tradition that needs to be modified. You don't lose tradition, you change tradition as it goes along, and become a more inclusive culture. And only then you're going to advocate people coming to work as people. I am me when I come to work. This is me, this is my style, this is what I exude, and make the best of me, and I'll make the best of you. So I leave you with a question. Sorry, yes, Matt.
Oh, well, actually, so there's a couple of questions have come up in the chat box, so let me just throw those out. So one question is, if we are good managers in an unhealthy system, from what I understand you said, we will burn out because of the system. Yeah. But it's not our system. I'm not sure what to do with this.
Okay. Can we hold it on to that for the Q&A? We'll definitely take that as the first question. Okay. I'm going to wind up with this question for all of you. Are you happy? Now, if you go and see a doctor, one of the first things a doctor does is to put a thermometer under your tongue. The higher the temperature, the higher the disease process. Similarly, we have a thermometer. Call it a psychometer if you want to. So are you happy? If the answer is yes, then by all means, keep doing whatever it is that you're doing. But if the answer is no, I'm not happy, then I've got another question for you. Do you want to be happy? So I'm not happy. Do you want to be happy? No. Oh, then by all means, carry on what you're doing. Just carry on, but you just maintain what you're doing. But if the answer is yes, I want to be happy, there's only one way to get to be happy. That is to change something. You've got to do something. So I'm glad you're all here because everybody wants to do something. You're open to information and a little bit of motivation. So I hope that's done the trick. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much, Paul.
Sama, as I said earlier. Sama is same in the Malaysian language. It means likewise. Thank you.
Sama. So if we can get back to that one question. Yeah. Can you see the questions in your chat box?
Let me just try in the Q&A box.
Yes.
Yes, I got that. If you're good managers in an unhealthy system, from what I understand, you said we will burn out because of the system, but it's not our system. Okay, you have to turn every stone possible for you to function. Now, if you're a dynamic person and you're being stifled, you've got to turn every stone possible. Now, your economic situation in the country, your necessity to drive, to maintain a job and to have an income might override your personal value system, your personal needs and wants, So if you're going to give into a system that's burning you out and make that your choice, then this is your choice. If you want to fight the system, there are consequences as well. So one of the things that's important to understand is that you're constantly making choices. Can you imagine how many choices you're making in a day? Just think about this. Choices in a day. What to wear in the morning? What time shall I wake up? How am I going to cross this? Where do I stop? Should I stop now? Should I do that? You're constantly making choices without thinking about it. Now, this is a choice you have to make while thinking about it very, very carefully. The only way you're going to change this is not to run away from a system, but to decide what you want to do within the system. Yes, you will burn out. But if you want to prevent burnout, what are you going to do? What are the options open to you? Change jobs? Yeah. Then what's going to happen to you there? Change jobs? Don't forget, wherever you go, guys, you're taking at least these four factors with you. And that's why people go job hopping all the time without realizing that they are the problem regularly. They had this honeymoon period in a new job and then realize, hello, it's the same problems have arisen all over again. It's because of your four factors that haven't changed. Now, to this question, there's two replies to this. One is the possibility that you need to tweak a few of your responsive behaviors, the extent to which you want to manage people and be an agent of change. The second issue is, do you want to fight the system or move on? Is it worth fighting the system? So that's a choice that you're going to have to make. That's what I would say, Matthew.
Thank you. That's great advice. Next question. With the current emphasis on ESG, companies are asked to concern all stakeholders, not just shareholders. So for the employees' safety, both physical and mental, is to be assessed as part of social. How do you think they will measure mental safety of one company?
How do you think they will measure mental safety of one company? Now, there's no such thing as one measure of mental safety of a company. There are several terms here that are in conflict. You don't have something called mental safety of one company. You have a company and you have various measures of employee behavior, employee function within a company. So this is purely an issue of policy and what measures they have within the policy. I have no idea here. From within my university, which is Monash University, Australia, our occupational safety and health group, we call them occupational safety and health. They have measures like stress responses. They have measures of anxiety and depression scales as well. But company behavior in terms of how the management works, that is something that's totally different. That's alien to me. How the manager or the director or how the pro-vice chancellor works with the faculty, I don't know. That has to be very company specific. So sorry, Mira, very sorry about that.
Okay, so the next one. Are there any studies to evaluate which interventions are more efficacious than others? Interventions to address mental health issues at the workplace? Yes,
for sure, for sure. All interventions in our field are literature-based, evidence-based, and given the fact that somebody is depressed or anxious or highly anxious, the literature and the latest research would dictate the kind of interventions that we use. However, it is also very culturally based. So we are culturally sensitive. And the word here is cultural competence, not just cultural sensitivity. There's a technical word called cultural competence, where you're aware of somebody else's culture, you're aware of your own culture and how these cultures meet, where conflicts arise, where conflicts don't arise. And it's an important aspect in human management, especially in universities and treating patients across the board. to understand their presentation from a different culture, their presentation of pain, the presentation of stresses, the presentation of illnesses, or in your case, stresses at work, their gender, their sexuality, all these things must be culturally defined before we actually move into that area. So yes, there are studies to evaluate interventions in response to what kind of problems are presented. Yes, definitely.
Okay, thank you. One other question is, how do you balance the need to accomplish challenging tasks with the stress that comes from that pressure to perform?
Well, again, I'll come up with a double-pronged reply. One is how you lend yourself to that system, how you lend yourself to a certain level of performance. What is your level of performance? And what is your, well, I suppose KPIs measure that, your objectives measure that. Now, to what level are you going to lend yourself to that level of performance, and what it demands from your personality to perform at that level? That's one thing. The second approach is, who sets these KPIs? How are they set? Are they set together as a conjoint issue, or are they top-down management? Now, this will determine to what extent you actually lend yourself towards performing or not performing, and the kind of pressure that you pile on yourself to perform or not to perform. So the issues here in occupational psychology, for instance, are how KPIs are set and what you need to actually perform to those KPIs, and what new skills, upskilling, or other kinds of personal empowerment factors that you need to actually meet those new KPIs and new challenges. Does that answer your question, Chris?
We'll see. We have another question, which is how to address stigma in mental health at the workplace.
Okay, that's a classic one. Top down. I would definitely say stigma at mental health in the workplace is top down. So when I have managers who come and tell me, presidents who come and tell me that, Paul, I'd like you to evaluate the staff below me. I said, no, it starts with you. It starts with you, and it depends on how transparent you want to be. So it starts with the leader. It starts with leadership. And there are various strategies to employ to actually go about doing this. But yes, it must start top down. You can't just say that I want all security personnel to do this, I want all management at this level to do this, and you are not doing it yourself. Cannot. The other way to battle stigma is information. Constant information, constantly talking about it, constantly having seminars like this within the system. This will help get people talking more about it. Support groups will be able to be set up. People will start sharing, saying, I've done this, I've done that. Now, I'll give you a good example. There's a large Korean population in Malaysia, huge Korean population. And many people are now coming, many Koreans are accessing this mental health experts in Kuala Lumpur, and they're doing it very openly. They're coming in groups, they're coming and supporting one another. And they say they will never do this in Korea themselves. They'll never access it in Korea. Singaporeans are crossing the border into Malaysia to see psychologists in the neighboring states. They don't want to see psychologists within the same country. I mean, Singapore is very small, but they don't want to do it at home. Now, the reason being, people are not openly talking about it in their little circles, in their various environments, primary, secondary, tertiary environments. So if you want to address stigma, the more you talk about it, the better. You know, the word sex you couldn't mention the word sex many years ago, many years ago. But now you can openly talk about sex. You can talk about genders. You can talk about harassment. You can talk about intercourse. You can talk about sexual health openly. So the more you talk about it, the more destigmatized it will become. So yes, information, practicing it at the workplace, top down.
Wonderful. Just out of my own curiosity, do you do consulting for companies that want to make changes or from a top-down type of
Yes,
approach?
definitely. Yeah, of course. We do quite a bit of it here. Companies are becoming more and more sensitized to this need, the emotional and mental health need. And rather than working immediately with the workforce, companies are beginning to realize that you need to work with top management first.
Yeah.
Easier to measure, better P&C issues can be maintained. And once they get into that habit and they realize how necessary and how easy it is, then they start filtering down. And also because there's a lesser turnover at that higher level. So, to have this consistency of measurement, consistency of regularity of information dissemination and education is crucial. Yes, it is done. And Matthew, there are people far more qualified than I am within your region and in neighboring areas who do this regularly. It's just a matter of reaching out and vetting them by all means. You just need to vet them. Yeah. Please be careful about charlatans. There are a lot of charlatans who come out and sell you packages and say, buy this package for a few $100,000 and it'll solve your problems. Look out for the guys who come and say, we need to custom design this to suit your company, to suit your system, your mission statement. And it's an important thing to do because you have a culture going with each company and with the kind of leadership that you have.
Wonderful. I think we are out of time. Let me just see if there's anything I need to add. Paul, this has been fantastic. We really appreciate you joining today. If we were here in person, we would all be clapping for you now.
Thank you.
Maybe I can invite all of our audience to just type in the word clap into the Q&A section just to show our appreciation to you today. And while they're doing that, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge our other co-chairs from the AMCHAM HR committee, Yumi Jun from PERSOLKELLY, Singhye Chung from McDonald's, and Q Park from Janssen. Thanks to all of them, we can have this committee and have great speakers like Paul. With that, we will close today. And Paul, thank you again. We really appreciate your time today.
Sama-sama. Stay safe, everyone. Come to Malaysia and dive. Come on. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.